Big word. Daniel, do you want to talk about degrowth?
Oh my God. Sure. The argument, so degrowth is this idea, and many of you might have seen it, exciting idea from Europe. You know, they all sit around in Barcelona in their secondhand waffle knits and talk about degrowth. No, but degrowth is very compelling. And what degrowth agenda comes out of is something called ecological economics, which is not the same as environmental economics. Environmental economists are fundamentally obsessed with changing prices. They think that will solve all of our problems. And ecological economists think that we have to understand the economy as being about the arrangement of physical things. And as they have noticed, very compelling, only environmental economists haven't figured this out, there is only so much stuff on this earth. And if we use it all, making each other extremely fabulously wealthy in the Western lifestyle, then eventually we run out and fuck everything up. So ecological economists, which have, and a strand of that has turned into the degrowth movement, are saying we simply use too much stuff and we have to stop growing the economy in the rich world. And Kate alluded to that earlier. And I think there's a lot that's right about that. My problem with the degrowth frame is that it's not very appealing. And we've been living under austerity for working people for 50 years. And so the argument that we make in the book is we need one last green stimulus to create the physical conditions under which we can have prosperity in the US and around the world, but using far fewer physical resources. So it's kind of like a Goldilocks position in a way, which is like, yes, technology is super important. We love things like electric buses. And yes, we do need to develop the economy and build new things that we don't have, whether it's parks or bus trolley lines. But the goal, even very short-term goal, is to reduce the amount of energy we use in absolute terms, reduce the amount of energy we use, reduce it, and create the physical conditions where we can work 20, 30 hours a week and spend much more time, you know, hanging out, playing sports, making plays in our bands, some version of the West Philly lifestyle, much more expanded. But I think in the very short term, the phrase degrowth, I have no problem with people using it, but I don't think that's a winning political frame. But I also don't think it's inconsistent with the vision that we're laying out. We're talking about a last green stimulus and absolutely short-term reductions in energy use through efficiency and through reorganizing how we live. And it will improve our living standards in every conceivable way. But yes, there will be more yoga and fewer trips to IKEA for end tables that we don't need.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is I think what I see sort of crop up in the growth and degrowth debates, and I think it's a limited array of the public that's invested in those debates, is it these sort of, right, like false dichotomies, and it's a sort of, you know, there's this widespread sense that growth and economic prosperity are the same thing. We know that's not true. There's, you know, mountains of empirical research to show us that's not true. And I think when the conversation is framed around the question of growth, I think that's tough for the left, right? Growth as itself is this relatively, you know, new concept. It was only a couple decades ago that the sort of health of economies was judged on much more material basis, like how many people don't have jobs, right? What is the sort of, you know, standard of living? There were much more sort of intuitive definitions of whether the economy was doing good than this sort of arbitrary basket of goods and how much things cost in it that leaves out all these things, and certain things get imputed, certain things don't. And I think, you know, we can have the argument and, you know, make the case for the world we want to build without necessarily engaging on this, you know, terrain, which essentially has been built by the right and by fairly reactionary forces within the economics profession. And so I think my preference is always to sort of sidestep the question of growth or degrowth. And I, you know, I enjoy those, you know, some of those debates. And I think there are, you know, important points raised, especially by the ecological economists who, you know, sort of adhere to degrowth. But I think for, you know, waging this sort of war of public relations, I don't always think it's the best sort of, you know, terminology to be using.